so here's another grouping exercise, this time in 6/8 time. Now, if you recall, 6/8 is compound time. So this is a little bit more complicated than our previous 4/4 exercise. 6/8 means there are 6 quavers in each bar, but 2 beats. So we have 2 beats, each worth 1 dotted crotchet, which gives us 6/8 time. So that's just something to bear in mind each time we have a look at the beats here. Now, when we start with this exercise, immediately there's a problem here, because this first bar is only 3 beats long. So that's going to be a bit of a problem. Now, this is a special thing in music called an anacrusis, or an upbeat, or a pickup. So this is actually not wrong, this is perfectly correct, because if we go all the way down to the bottom at the end here, we can see there's our other 3 beats. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, not our 3 beats, our 3 quavers. So together these make 1 full bar. And when you're numbering bars, you would number this as bar 1, bar 2, bar 3. So you wouldn't number, this isn't the first bar, this is the first bar. So that's just a special device to pay attention to. And if you're writing music with an upbeat or a pickup, you have to make sure that the last bar completes the first bar, so that together they make 1 full bar. Okay, so now we can go have a look at this again. These 3, because if we recall, 1 beat is 1 dotted crotchet over there. So these 3 all fits into 1 beat. But why is the beating split up like that? That's confusing and difficult. So we're going to make life simpler, just like that. So now we can clearly see where the beat lies. So that's the first bar, or the upbeat sorted. Now, in the second bar, we have 1 quaver, 2 quaver, 3 quavers, and 1, 2, 3 quavers. So the first thing that springs to the eyes is this thing over here. Why is this note beamed together with that note? So we're going to fix that immediately. Let's do that over there. Fix that. So let's work backwards in this bar. So we just finished that beat over there. Quaver, quaver, quaver. Now, you can actually sometimes rewrite this like this. So that's just the alternative that you can do. Either is fine, but this is quite rare. One doesn't really see that very much in notation, but it's not technically incorrect. This is the more usual one. The one reason why it's actually better to write it the other way is that this way you'll see will be a little bit visually ambiguous. So, but be that as it may, that's how it usually is written. So if we now return to the first beat, we've got a quaver, and these the two semi-quaver rests, which doesn't really make any sense to have them split up like that, because a rest is a rest is a rest. So rests we can always group together. We don't have to worry about ties and things like that. So there we go. Now, as I mentioned, you can see this is a little bit visually ambiguous, because it can look like 1 beat, 1 beat, 1 beat. But where in fact, it's actually 2 beats like that. So this is just something, when you're dealing with 6/8 time, when you're reading it, you just always have to just keep your eye grouping these things together in the appropriate groups. Because there are some ambiguities like this in notation system. Okay, but that's correct then for that bar over there. Now, well, if we just, sorry, let me just finish the thought over here. If we had written this over here like this, you can see now it immediately looks like 6, 8, and there's no ambiguity in the shape of it. So yeah, not a perfect system, but it does the job. So now if we carry on here, if we recall, this was a quaver from back there that was tied to that. So again, we want to split that off and just make that into a quaver. So this is the same problem we had last time where everything was a bit beamed incorrectly. So let's just split the beams out first. I'm going to put these two together into one beam and then put this over there. And let's do the same with these two semiquavers. The reason is because our beat is a dotted crotchet. Our subdivisions, the first subdivision of the beat is a quaver. So two semiquavers together like that will always fit into that first subdivision. So for something that looks like this, we don't have to really worry. Where it would have been a problem is if we had a semiquaver that was loose, that was kind of not tied together with another semiquaver, because obviously that would shift everything out of phase. But fortunately here we don't have that problem. So, here we go. One quaver, one quaver, that's one quaver together, and that's one quaver together. So these three fit into one beat, like so. And we can do the same thing here. Quaver, quaver, quaver. These three, again, fit into one beat like that. This is a little bit untidy. Let's just clear that up a little bit. And that's that bar solved. So then we can move on to the last bar. And we have one dotted crotchet rest. Now recall, this is the completion of this bar over here. So this isn't one whole bar of rest. If this was one whole bar of 6, 8, we would have used a semi-brief rest. But in this case, this is actually only half a bar, with the other half being over there. And so that's correct. Now, one thing to notice about dotted rests over here is that when we are writing in simple time, we'll never use dotted rests. So if you have a dotted rest like that in simple time, say you have a 4-4 bar, let me write this in red so it's a bit easier to pick out. So say you have a 4-4 bar, and you have, let's say for example, you have a crotchet, dotted crotchet rest, quaver, and crotchet. You'll never have dotted crotchet rests like that in simple time. Even if it didn't cross the middle of the bar, it would still, you couldn't do this, for example, quaver, and then crotchet, crotchet. That would be incorrect. You have to, in simple time, you have to split that up. And again, it's for the same reason. It's just so that it's clear to see that that's simple time, whereas that's compound time. Okay, so that's this problem solved then. We have the time signature down here at the bottom as well. So compound duple time, bum 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 ba 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 ba, and that's it. Problem solved. And that is not all you need to know about grouping, because there's still a lot to learn. This is just the general overview, and just to get a flavor for how grouping works. When you have more complicated time signatures like 7-8, for example, irregular time, you stick to the same principle. You have some beats that have 3 subdivisions and some beats that are subdivisions of 2. And so you try to beat the ones that are subdivisions of 3 with 3, and the beats that are subdivisions of 2 with 2, and so forth. So actually, grouping in irregular time is actually in a way simpler, because you always have the grouping laid out for you. But the best way to learn how to do grouping is just to do a lot of exercises and to just go for the right flavor. But it is probably a good idea to have guidance as you're doing it, because there's lots of sets of rules for grouping, but none of them are really complete, and it's really difficult to work from rules to try to figure out how to do a grouping exercise correctly. Okay, that's it.